Welcome guys to math. It used to be random stupid math, and then it changed to random silly math, and then it just changed to silly math, but now I'm just gonna call it math, and be real unoriginal and call it number 8 because it is technically the 8th math related video that I'm doing. And today I'm gonna do a bit of factoring and completing the square, which is not that hard of a step up from factoring, but I should also add that in this video, it's going to be a master video, I'm going to do also the quadratic formula. Very spanky, swag, like Algebra 2 shenanigans. And something of note, I'm going to be doing Flash Fridays. Today's Friday, so this is the first Flash Friday. Every Friday I'm going to upload as many videos as I can. Today, 3 videos. So, interesting. So I have this binomial here, and this was what you would usually come up with as an answer if you were factoring something, but let's just say that we wanted to multiply these. So you would FOIL, you would get x squared minus 7x minus 18, if you did all your math. And okay. But what if you wanted to revert this back to this form, x plus a times x plus b, well, you do something called factoring, and if you want to learn factoring binomials, you first have to know something called the general form of the quadratic equation. And that's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a and b are coefficients, c is a constant, and 0 is 0, x squared in x terms. And so while you're factoring, you have to make sure that there are going to be two numbers. They can be any two numbers, but they are going to have to multiply and result in C. So for the C, and this is when you're factoring, it has to be two numbers that multiply to get this number. Sorry, Bamboo stopped working, so I said two numbers that multiply to get this number, and it can be any number. So if, for example, C was positive 10, there are a lot of numbers that could do that. It could be negative 2 or negative 5, it could be 10 and 1, negative 10 and 1. The possibilities are endless. I mean, you could go anywhere, but it has to multiply to get that number. And for this B number, it has to be two numbers again, but they have to add to get this number. So they have to add to this number. For example, if I had 6 as our number, it could be 5 and 1. It could be negative 2, 8. I mean, the possibilities, once again, are endless. Usually, when you are factoring, you do not want anything as an A term. You want to either divide that out, or you want to separate it out by factoring it out like that beforehand. You really don't want this, unless you're doing the quadratic formula once again. Okay, so now that we know everything that we need to know, let's erase most of this. Okay, hello again. So let's do a practice problem, and let's make it easy. X squared plus 5x, and it's gonna be minus 14. Okay, so let's have a look. I already told you that there has to be two numbers that multiply. This is multiply to get this number. And there has to be two numbers that add to get this number. So what could that be? Well, the first thing, it's more like an art of finding the perfect pair of numbers. So I think of all the possible outcomes. There could be 1 and 14, 2 and 7. That's pretty much it, isn't it? It could be 1, 14, 2, 7. So now I look at these pairs of numbers rather, and I think about which numbers could possibly result in the number 5, and automatically we see that 2, 7 can fit this definition, because 7 minus 2 is 5, right? They correlate to the number 5. So let's try and work something out here. We do see that this is negative 14 right here, negative 14. So what must that mean? One of these numbers has to be negative, one of these numbers has to be positive, because a negative number times a positive number is a negative number. So one of these has to be negative. I think I'll choose negative 2 and 7 as my pair. And I'll tell you why I chose negative 2, 7 instead of negative 7, 2 later. So now I go back to this 5, and I quickly see if it works. Does negative 2 plus 7 equal 5? Yes, it does, so it works. This is the pair that we need. So what we do is we get two pairs of parentheses, and whatever your A term is, that's going to be what you put in the first term, and you can just plug these numbers in. So this is minus 2 and this is plus 7. So there we have it. That is our final form, x minus 2, x plus 7. And if you want to check it, just FOIL it. I mean, I'm not going to do that right now, but you can do it on yourself, save some time. So that's basically how you do your basic factoring. And now I want to show you something cool. It's called completing the square. And it's used when the answer isn't really obvious, when you're just doing guess factoring, like I like to call it. You're basically just trial and error factoring, but this is pretty neat. So let's say we have x squared plus 7x plus 6, and actually I don't want to do that because it's going to get complicated, and I don't really like complicated. So let's settle for 8x. 8x minus 20 is equal to 0. And you're like, oh my god, I cannot find a solution to this. I mean, you probably could, but let's pretend that you can't. And you decide to do something called completing the square. And this is how you complete the square. Ready? If my mouse would work. So my tablet is pretty messed up. I mean, it often disconnects and leaves me hanging, and I have to do some stuff on my own. But here we go. This is how you complete the square. Step 1, you need to get the c term on the right hand of the equation with 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 20 to both sides. So what that leaves me with is x squared plus 8x. I'm just going to leave this blank because I'm going to use it later. And now this is 20. The next thing is I'm going to manipulate the b term so that this term right here becomes a product of a perfect square, which is taking the form of x plus a squared, but when you FOIL it, it's going to turn out to be in the form of a perfect square, and that is why it is called completing the square, if you are curious. So how do I do that? Well, the concept itself is pretty simple. Just take the coefficient of the b term, which is 8. You're going to divide it by 2, so that's 4. And you're going to take that 4 and then you're going to square it, so that's 16. So on the b term, you halve it, you divide it by 2, and then you square it. So that's 8, halve it, 4, square it, that's 16. So add 16. So now we get this. And then whatever you do to this side, obviously you have to do to this side. So what does that become? X squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 36. Now what do we have? This is basically like a product of an actual x plus a term. And what is that? We know what a is because we went over it before. X plus a is 4. So we can rewrite the left-hand side of this equation as x plus 4 squared equals 36. And what should we do now? We take the square root of both sides. What does that leave us with? X plus 4 equals plus minus 6. Okay. So now we just have to do two separate equations. We have an x plus 4 equals 6. And then we also have a case where it's x plus 4 equals negative 6. And just solve. So for this one, x is going to be negative 10. And for this one, x is going to be 2. So what are our factors? It's going to be x minus 2 and x plus 10. Cool, and if you FOIL this, it's going to come up with this. Now one last thing I want to do, no doubt, is going to be divided into 2 halves or whatever because this is quite a long video. But I just want to show you the quadratic equation really quick. And I'm not going to use the quadratic equation on you. I'm simply going to give it to you, and what I want you to do is I want you to apply the quadratic formula yourself. So if we complete the square on the general form, which is possible, you could do something like this: ax plus bx equals c, and then you do b over 2, so you add b over 2 squared, and then plus b over 2 squared, and then you complete the square on this side, and it's going to be like ax squared plus b over 2 squared equals c plus, and then you do all this type of fancy math and you expand it further and further, but the result that you're going to get is the quadratic formula, and this is going to be the result of all of your struggles. And what this is in horrifying green coloring is x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that over to a. This is very useful, and it looks long, but it really isn't, and I recommend that you do memorize this, because you're going to have to memorize it next year in Algebra 2 Trig. Now, what are all these b's, a's, and c's? Just general form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Usually if your a coefficient's 1, then that's what it is. But yeah, just a, b, c. Plug it in, solve for x. You know, there's 2 different ways you can go because of this plus minus. And that's basically it. All I want to show you today. So thanks for watching.